3 days without water, abandoned in the merciless Arizona desert.
Please,
Two Apache
wake up.
widows were moments away from death. One woman was unconscious. The other was crying, begging her friend not to die. Then, they heard horse hooves. A mysterious cowboy appeared on the horizon, and instead of leaving them behind, he gave them his water, carried the dying woman, and took them to his ranch. But months later, the very tribe that had banished them returned with a desperate request. Their entire tribe was dying, and the only woman who could save them was the widow they had left to die. What happened next would prove that sometimes the person you reject becomes the one you need most. Watch Love in the Wild West on the next video app as soon as possible. Please subscribe to my channel. Here is the English translation of the script, adapted for narrative flow and emotional impact. Asterisk. Flor de Luna held the unconscious body of her best friend under the killing sun of the Arizona desert. 3 days without water, 3 days without hope, 3 days fleeing from a tribe that had abandoned them to die. "Don't die," she begged through tears, her voice barely a hoarse whisper. "Please, sister, don't leave me alone." But Silent Wind's eyes were already closed, and her breathing grew weaker with every passing minute. Flor de Luna looked up at the empty sky. Cloudless, merciless, she thought this would be her last day in this world. And then she heard it. The sound of approaching horse hooves. But before we reveal who appeared on that horizon, you must know how two women ended up abandoned in the middle of nowhere, condemned to die for the only crime of having lost their husbands. It all began a year ago, when Silent Wind still had hope. She was 32 years old, with hair as black as a raven's wing falling to her waist, and hands that knew every medicinal herb in these wild lands. Her mother had taught her everything before passing away. How to prepare fever remedies with willow roots, how to treat infected wounds with wild honey, how to soothe the pain of old bones with hot clay poultices. She was the wisest woman in the tribe regarding healing. But none of that mattered anymore because Silent Wind was a widow. And in her tribe, a woman without a husband was nothing. A year ago, her beloved husband, Brave Wolf, had gone hunting with other men from the tribe. It was a normal morning, like any other. He kissed her forehead before leaving, promising to return before nightfall with fresh meat for dinner. But he never came back. A terrible accident in the Rocky Mountains took him forever. He fell from a precipice while chasing a deer, and his body was found 3 days later at the bottom of the canyon. Silent Wind cried for weeks, but tears were not her only suffering. Soon she discovered a cruel truth. Without a husband, a woman lost all value in the eyes of the tribe. Note to viewers: don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and write in the comments where in the world you are listening from. It makes us very happy and motivates us to keep creating these stories for you. Her childhood best friend, Flor de Luna, shared the exact same painful fate. She was 28 years old, beautiful as the dawn over the mountains, with a crystalline laugh that once brightened the entire camp. But her husband had died 8 months prior during a hunt in the mountains. His horse stumbled on a rocky path and they both fell into a ravine. By the time the tribe's men found his body, it was too late. Now they were both widows, two women alone in a world that did not tolerate women without owners. At first, some single men showed interest in marrying them, but Silent Wind rejected the proposals because she still loved her dead husband and could not imagine sharing her life with another man so soon. Flor de Luna did the same. Unable to forget the kind eyes of her deceased husband, their rejections were not well received. The offended men began to speak ill of them in the camp. They called them proud, difficult, troublesome. Little by little, the whole tribe began to see them differently. "Two widows who reject husbands," the elders whispered when they passed by. "Who will support them? Who will protect them? They are a burden to us all." The two had each other when the world turned its back on them. On cold winter nights, they shared the same fire and the same blankets. On difficult days, they shared the same bitter tears. Their friendship was all they had left. The Council of Elders met on a gray autumn afternoon when the leaves began to fall and the cold wind brought the first announcement of the approaching winter. Silent Wind and Flor de Luna were not invited to the meeting, but they knew perfectly well that their fate was being decided in that circle of old men and cruel traditions. The sentence arrived at dusk, pronounced without any compassion. "You must leave," announced the chief of the tribe, a man with a face carved by 1,000 winters and a heart hardened by 1,000 difficult decisions. "Our tribe cannot carry women who have no man to answer for them. You do not produce, you do not procreate, you only consume. We offered you marriage, and you rejected it. Now you must go." Flor de Luna fell to her knees on the cold earth, tears bursting forth uncontrollably. "Please have mercy. This is our people, our family, our only home. Our husbands died serving this tribe. Is this how you repay their sacrifice?" But no one looked at her. No one extended a compassionate hand. The women she had grown up with, laughed with, and cried with, turned their faces as if she were invisible. The children she had lovingly cared for, when their mothers were busy, ran to hide behind their parents, afraid of the women without owners. Silent Wind did not beg. She had seen this coming for months, perhaps since the day she buried her husband. She knew the cruelty disguised as tradition. She took her friend's trembling hand and helped her stand with dignity. "Save your tears," she whispered in her ear. "Do not give them the pleasure of seeing you beg. They do not deserve it." They were given until dawn to gather their belongings, one ragged blanket each, one small knife for the two of them, and a bag with dry food that would not last more than 3 days in the relentless desert. And so, when the sun began to paint the horizon orange and blood red, 2 solitary figures walked toward the infinite desert. Behind them, not a single voice rose to bid them farewell. Not a single child ran to hug them for the last time, nor did a single tear fall for their departure. The desert received them with its eternal silence and absolute indifference. They walked the entire first day without rest, conserving precious water drop by drop, avoiding the most intense sun under the scarce shade of giant rocks. Flor de Luna cried silently as she walked, tears tracing shiny paths on her dusty cheeks. Silent Wind kept her gaze fixed on the distant horizon, looking for something, anything that would give them a reason to keep going. She found nothing but sand and stones. The second day was a nightmare. The water ran out at noon when the sun struck with greater force. The heat was an invisible, ruthless monster that stole their strength with every staggering step. Flor de Luna began to trip constantly, her lips cracked and bleeding, her breath turned into short, painful gasps. "Let's rest," she begged with a hoarse voice. "Just a moment, please." They stopped under a dry, twisted tree that offered barely any shade. Silent Wind looked at her friend with eyes full of sadness, and saw the terrible truth neither wanted to pronounce. They would not survive another day under this killing sun. "I am so sorry," whispered Flor de Luna with her eyes closed. "I should have accepted marrying any of those men. At least you wouldn't be here dying with me." Silent Wind took her hand tightly and squeezed it. "Don't say that. I will not sell you to a man you don't love just to survive. Our husbands truly loved us. We deserve that same love, not crumbs of convenience. And I would rather die here with you 1,000 times than live there without dignity." On the third morning, Silent Wind could not get up. Fever burned her body like hot embers. Dehydration clouded her mind with strange visions of her husband calling her from afar. Flor de Luna hugged her desperately, protecting her from the cruel sun with her own battered body, singing her ancient, sweet songs that her grandmothers had taught her as a child. "Don't sleep," she begged between sobs. "Stay with me, sister, don't leave me alone." But Silent Wind's eyes closed slowly. Flor de Luna looked at the empty sky. No clouds, no hope, no pity. She thought of her dead husband, wondering if she would soon see him again in the other world. And then she heard something unexpected. Horse hooves approaching. At first, she thought it was an auditory mirage, another cruel trick of the dying desert. But the sound got closer and closer, real and constant, like a heartbeat of hope. A solitary figure appeared on the bright horizon, riding a gray horse stained with dust, wearing a wide-brimmed hat that hid his face. A white man, a cowboy from the territory. Flor de Luna had heard varied stories about them. Some were cruel as wild beasts, others were just as water in the desert. There was no way to know which one this mysterious stranger was who was approaching slowly. But she had no options left. She had nothing left to lose, except the life that was already slipping away. She stood up with the last strength remaining in her body and raised her trembling arms toward the sky. "Please," she shouted, with a hoarse, broken voice. "Please help us." The cowboy stopped his horse a few meters away. His face was weathered by years of relentless sun, with an unkempt beard of several days, and eyes of a deep blue like the winter sky. Eyes that seemed to have seen too much pain and too much loneliness in this life. He looked at Flor de Luna standing, swaying like a leaf in the wind. He looked at Silent Wind, unconscious on the burning ground, barely breathing. And in that exact moment, under the implacable sun of the Arizona desert, a man named Jake Callahan made a decision that would change 3 broken lives forever. He dismounted his horse without hesitating for a second. "Calm down," he said, with a grave but surprisingly soft voice. "I'm going to get you out of here, I promise you." Jake Callahan was not a man of many words. Life had taught him that words often abound when actions speak louder. And at that moment, under the scorching desert sun, his actions spoke with absolute clarity. He took off his hat and placed it over the unconscious woman's face to protect her from the sun while he worked. He took out his canteen, still half full, and offered it first to Flor de Luna. "Drink slowly," he instructed with a firm but kind voice. "If you drink too fast, your body will reject it." Flor de Luna obeyed, taking small sips that tasted like the sweetest water she had ever had in her entire life. Meanwhile, Jake knelt beside Silent Wind and examined her condition with expert eyes. He had seen dehydration before many times. He knew every minute counted. "How long has she been like this?" he asked without looking up. "Since this morning," replied Flor de Luna with a trembling voice. "The fever started last night. I tried to keep her cool, but I didn't have enough water." Jake nodded, wetted a handkerchief with water, and placed it on Silent Wind's burning forehead. Then, with surprising strength but also unexpected delicacy, he lifted her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. "My ranch is 2 hours from here," he said as he walked toward his horse. "It's not a palace, but there is fresh water, shade, and clean beds. Can you ride?" Flor de Luna looked at the gray horse with uncertainty. She had never ridden one of those animals. In her tribe they used horses, but she had always walked, always at the back of the group, always invisible. "I don't know how," she admitted with embarrassment. Jake showed no impatience or mockery. He simply arranged Silent Wind on the horse, securing her with soft ropes so she wouldn't fall, and then helped Flor de Luna climb on behind her friend. "Hold on to her," he instructed. "I will lead the horse on foot. We will go slowly so as not to agitate her too much." And so began the strangest journey Flor de Luna had ever experienced. An unknown cowboy walking under the punishing sun, leading his horse with 2 Apache women he had just found half dead in the desert. He asked for nothing in return. He asked no questions about why they were alone in the middle of nowhere. He simply walked step by step, kilometer after kilometer. Flor de Luna watched him from atop the horse, trying to understand this mysterious man. His clothes were worn but clean. His boots had seen better days, but his hands, although calloused and strong, had touched Silent Wind with a care she had not seen in a long time. 2 hours later, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, they arrived at Jake Callahan's ranch. It was a modest but well-kept place, an adobe house with a wooden roof, a stable where the soft neighs of other horses could be heard, a corral with a few cows, and a small garden where green vegetables grew. A windmill turned lazily, pumping fresh water from a deep well. "Welcome to my home," said Jake as he helped Flor de Luna down from the horse. "It's not much, but it's honest." He carried Silent Wind inside, and gently deposited her on a bed covered with clean sheets that smelled of sun and soap. Flor de Luna looked around with wide eyes, amazed by the orderly simplicity of the place. There was a wooden table with 2 chairs, an iron stove, shelves with provisions, and old photographs on the walls. Jake filled a basin with fresh water from the well and brought clean cloths. "We need to bring down her fever," he explained. "She needs fluids and rest. I've seen cases like this before, during the war. If we keep her hydrated and cool, she should wake up soon." Flor de Luna took the cloths and began to moisten her friend's forehead and neck, just as she had seen the older women of her tribe do when someone was sick. Jake watched her for a moment, nodded in approval, and left the room to give them privacy. That night, while Flor de Luna watched over Silent Wind's restless sleep, Jake prepared a simple vegetable soup from his garden, brought a bowl for Flor de Luna, and left it on the table next to the bed. Without saying a word, she looked at him with eyes full of questions she dared not ask. "Eat," was all he said. "You need strength to care for her." Later, when the full moon illuminated the desert with its silver light, Flor de Luna found Jake sitting on the porch of the house, looking at the infinite stars. She gathered her courage and sat beside him, keeping a respectful distance. "Why?" she finally asked, the word escaping her lips before she could stop it. Jake did not answer immediately. He continued looking at the night sky as if searching for the answer among the constellations. "5 years ago," he began in a low voice, "I was also alone in this desert. I had lost everything in the war, my wife, my young son, my farm in Texas. I walked for days without direction, without wanting to live, without hope. And when I was about to give up, an old Apache man found me." Flor de Luna held her breath, surprised by the revelation. "He was an elder from a northern tribe," Jake continued. "He gave me water, took me to his camp, and cared for me for weeks until I regained my strength. When I asked him why he helped a stranger, a white man, he told me saying I never forgot." "What did he tell you?" whispered Flor de Luna. Jake finally turned to look at her, his blue eyes shining under the moonlight. He said, "Pain has no skin color, suffering does not speak a single language, and kindness needs no explanation. That old man saved my life. I cannot repay the favor to him because he died 2 winters ago, but I can honor his memory by helping others when they need it." Flor de Luna felt tears running down her cheeks, but this time they were not tears of sadness, but of something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. "Thank you," she said with a broken voice. "Thank you for not letting us die." Jake simply nodded and looked back at the stars. "Rest," he said. "Tomorrow will be a better day. And if your friend wakes up, and she will, we are going to need all our strength." Flor de Luna went back inside and lay down on the floor next to Silent Wind's bed, using a blanket Jake had left folded for her. Before closing her eyes, she looked at her friend's face and noticed something different. Color had returned slightly to her cheeks, and her breathing was calmer. Maybe, just maybe, destiny was giving them a second chance. And while the desert slept under the mantle of stars, 3 broken souls began, unknowingly, to weave the threads of a new family. Silent Wind opened her eyes on the 3rd day, when the morning sun entered softly through the window of the small room. The first thing she saw was a wooden ceiling she did not recognize at all. The second was the exhausted but smiling face of Flor de Luna, looking at her with tears of pure joy running freely down her cheeks. And the third was the comforting smell of hot soup floating in the air from somewhere nearby in the house. "Where are we?" she asked with a hoarse, weak voice, trying to sit up in bed. Flor de Luna stopped her gently but firmly, placing a caring hand on her shoulder. "Calm down, dear sister, you are completely safe. A good man found us in the desert when we were about to die and brought us to his ranch. You have been fighting fever for 3 days. But the worst is over. You are going to be fine." Silent Wind frowned, trying to remember the last few days. She had blurry fragments of images: the implacable sun, the unbearable thirst, her friend's worried face, and then nothing. Only deep darkness and strange dreams. "Saved?" she asked with evident distrust in her voice. "What kind of man?" "A cowboy," replied Flor de Luna with a small smile. "His name is Jake Callahan. He has lived alone here on this ranch for years. He found us half dead among the rocks and brought us here without asking for anything in return. He has been very good to us, sister. He has given us food, water, shelter, and he hasn't asked anything about our past or why we were alone in the desert." Before Silent Wind could respond with more questions, the door to the room opened slowly and Jake appeared with a steaming bowl of broth in his calloused hands. Seeing that the woman had finally awakened, his eyes showed a flash of genuine relief. "Good morning," he said, with a grave but kind voice, carefully leaving the bowl on the nightstand. "I am glad to see the fever has finally broken. You need to eat something to regain strength. It's just vegetable broth, but it will help you feel better." Silent Wind studied him with cautious eyes for a long moment. He was tall and strong, with large hands of an honest worker and blue eyes that seemed to have known both pain and kindness in equal parts. There was no threat in his posture nor malice in his gaze, only calm and infinite patience. "Thank you," she finally said, accepting the bowl with hands still trembling from weakness. Jake nodded briefly and headed for the door to give them privacy, but he stopped for a moment in the frame before leaving. "When you feel better and have strength, you can stay here as long as you need to recover completely. This ranch is big and there is always work to do, but you can decide that later. For now, just rest and eat." And without waiting for any answer, he left, closing the door softly behind him. The following weeks were the strangest and also the most peaceful Silent Wind had experienced in her entire adult life. Jake's ranch was a completely different world from the tribal camp where she had grown up and suffered so much. Here there were no looks of disdain nor cruel whispers behind her back. There were no elders judging every one of her steps, nor women avoiding her as if she carried some terrible contagious disease. Here there was only honest work, simple but nutritious food, and a respectful silence that gradually filled with quiet conversations and even occasional laughter. Jake taught them how the ranch worked with infinite patience. He showed them how to feed the horses early every morning, how to milk the 2 cows he had, how to care for the garden by watering the plants and pulling weeds. He was a quiet teacher who preferred to demonstrate with actions rather than explain with long speeches. In return, the women began to transform the ranch in ways Jake had never imagined possible. Flor de Luna turned out to be an exceptional cook with a natural talent for combining flavors. She took the simple vegetables from the garden and turned them into delicious dishes that Jake had never tasted in his solitary life. She prepared corn tortillas, aromatic stews, and even learned to make bread in the iron oven after several failed attempts that made her laugh until she cried. Silent Wind, for her part, found a new way to use her practical knowledge of medicinal plants that her mother had taught her with such dedication. She explored the surroundings of the ranch with renewed curiosity and discovered useful herbs growing wild among the desert rocks. Soon she began to prepare simple but effective home remedies. Natural ointments for Jake's cracked hands, relaxing teas that helped sleep better on cold nights, and mud and herb poultices to relieve muscle pain after a long day of hard work. One day, one of Jake's horses injured its hind leg jumping over a broken fence in the corral. The animal limped severely and refused to put weight on the hoof. Jake examined it with evident concern on his face, thinking he would have to make the long trip to the nearest town to seek professional help. "Let me see it first," said Silent Wind, approaching the nervous horse with slow and sure movements. She examined the leg with expert and gentle hands, just as her mother had taught her to examine any wound years ago. It wasn't broken, just severely inflamed from the hard blow against the wood. She prepared a thick paste with fresh clay from the nearby stream, crushed leaves of an anti-inflammatory plant she had found the previous week, and clean water from the well. She applied the mixture to the horse's swollen leg and wrapped carefully with strips of clean cloth that Flor de Luna handed to her. "You have to change the bandage every day for a week," she explained to Jake with a confident and professional voice, "and keep him in the stable without walking much until the inflammation goes down completely. My mother taught me this remedy when I was a child. She used it with the horses of our tribe, and it always worked very well." Jake looked at her with renewed respect shining in his blue eyes. "Your mother must have been a very wise woman to teach you so many useful things." "She was," replied Silent Wind with a sad but proud smile. "She learned from her own mother and she from hers. It is knowledge that passes from generation to generation, from mothers to daughters who want to listen and learn." A week later, just as she had confidently promised, the horse walked perfectly without any limp. Jake didn't say much about it because he was not a man of many words. But that night he prepared dinner himself for the two women, for the first time since they had arrived at the ranch. It was a fairly simple stew and not very tasty compared to Flor de Luna's cooking. But the gesture meant more than any elaborate speech of gratitude. The three ate together at the wooden table under the warm light of an oil lamp, sharing freshly baked bread and talking little, but smiling much. Outside, the desert wind blew softly against the adobe walls of the house. But inside there was warmth, there was abundant food, and something more that none of the three dared yet to name aloud. There was true peace. There was authentic belonging. There was the fragile but beautiful beginning of something like a family. And for the first time in many years of loneliness and suffering, both Silent Wind and Flor de Luna went to sleep without feeling the crushing weight of shame on their tired shoulders. Here, in this modest ranch lost in the middle of the Arizona desert, no one called them cursed, nor looked at them with cruel pity. Here, they were simply two valuable women who had much to offer the world. Peace never lasts forever. Silent Wind knew this better than anyone, but she had begun to forget it during those happy months on Jake's ranch. Almost 4 months had passed since they arrived half dead at the ranch. 4 months of honest work under the Arizona sun. 4 months of meals shared around the wooden table. 4 months of laughter, comfortable silences, and glances that said more than words. The ranch had flourished under the care of 3 people who had found in that lost place something the world had denied them, a true home. But that autumn morning, when the leaves began to change color and the air brought the first chill of the season, the past returned uninvited. Silent Wind was in the garden, picking ripe pumpkins, when she heard the hooves of several horses approaching on the main road. She looked up and her heart stopped for an instant, upon recognizing the figures approaching. They were 5 Apache riders, and at the front rode Eagle Sage, the chief of the tribe that had banished them months ago without any compassion. "Flor de Luna," called Silent Wind, with a tense voice, not taking her eyes off the unexpected visitors. "Come here right now." Flor de Luna came out of the house drying her hands with a kitchen towel, and upon seeing the riders, she froze like a stone statue. The color drained completely from her face, and her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. "What do they want here?" she whispered with a barely audible voice. "Have they come to finish what they started? Wasn't it enough to leave us to die in the desert?" Jake appeared from the stable upon hearing the commotion, with a work tool still in his hand. He assessed the situation with a single quick glance and walked calmly to place himself between the women and the approaching riders. He said nothing threatening, but his posture was clear. No one would hurt these women while he was alive to prevent it. The riders stopped a few meters away. Eagle Sage dismounted slowly from his horse, showing his advanced age in every movement of his tired body. His face, once proud and severe as a mountain, now showed deep lines of worry and something Silent Wind had never seen in him before, genuine desperation. "Silent Wind," said the elder with a hoarse and humble voice. "Flor de Luna, I come to ask for your help." "Help," repeated Silent Wind with bitter incredulity in every syllable. "You banished us like dogs to the desert to die alone, and now you come to ask for our help. What kind of cruel joke is this?" Eagle Sage lowered his head with visible shame. something the proud chief had never done before anyone in his entire life. "It is no joke, it is a desperate plea. Our tribe is dying, and we do not know how to stop it." He explained with a trembling voice that a mysterious illness had arrived at the camp 3 weeks ago. It began with high fever and extreme weakness. Then came red spots on the skin and a persistent cough that prevented sleep. The elders were the first to fall ill. Then, small children began to show the same terrifying symptoms. 2 respected elders had already died, and 5 children were so severe they could barely open their swollen eyes. "We have tried everything we know," continued Eagle Sage with tears forming in his old eyes. "Our healers have used all the herbs they know, all the traditional methods that have worked before, but nothing works against this unknown disease. It continues to advance without mercy, taking the weakest first." "And why do you come to look for me specifically?" asked Silent Wind, crossing her arms over her chest. "According to you, I am a widow without value, a burden who does not deserve a place in the tribe." Eagle Sage swallowed with visible difficulty before answering. "Your mother, may she rest in peace, was the best knower of healing remedies our tribe had in generations. She taught you everything she knew before departing this world. You are the only person who might know something we do not. You are our last hope." Silent Wind felt rage boil in her chest like water over fire. She remembered every insult whispered behind her back. She remembered the looks of disdain from the women she once called friends. She remembered the cold night when they forced her to walk into the desert without enough food or water. She remembered the face of her beloved husband before he died and how the tribe treated her after losing him. "You left us to die," she said with a voice as cold as winter. "I was unconscious for 3 days with fever while Flor de Luna cried, thinking she would lose me forever. If this good man had not found us by chance, our white bones would now be scattered in the desert for the vultures to clean. And now you want me to help you?" Flor de Luna placed a soft but firm hand on her friend's arm. "Sister, listen to me for a moment. I understand your pain because it is mine too. Every word you say is true, and you have every right in the world to refuse. But think of the innocent children who are suffering right now. They did not vote to banish us. They did not whisper insults behind our backs. They are innocent in all this. The children are not to blame for the cruel decisions of adults," added Jake with a calm but firm voice from his protective position. "I also have reasons to hold grudges against many people in this world, but I learned a long time ago that bitterness is a poison one drinks expecting the other to die. You are better than them, Silent Wind. Prove it." Silent Wind closed her eyes and breathed deeply several times, struggling with the emotions battling fiercely within her wounded heart. One part of her wanted to scream at them to leave, to suffer the consequences of their own cruelty, to taste the bitter flavor of the abandonment they had tasted. But another part, the part her mother had cultivated with patience and love during years of teaching, reminded her of something important. The knowledge she had received was not to be kept selfishly. It was to help those who needed it, regardless of who they were or what they had done in the past. She opened her eyes and looked directly at the elder kneeling before her. "I will take Flor de Luna with me, and Jake will come too if he wants. I will not go alone to a place where I was treated like trash." "Of course," accepted Eagle Sage immediately with evident relief in his trembling voice. "Whatever you say, whatever you need. And I want the whole tribe to hear from your own mouth that you banished us unjustly, and that you were wrong." The elder hesitated for a moment, his pride fighting against his desperation, but finally nodded his head in defeat. "I will do it before everyone, I solemnly promise." Silent Wind looked at Flor de Luna, then at Jake. Both nodded with silent but clear support in their eyes. "Then prepare the horses," she finally said with renewed determination in her voice. "We are going to save your tribe." The Apache camp was unrecognizable when they arrived at sunset the next day. Silent Wind remembered a place full of life, of children running between the tents, of women laughing while working together, of men telling stories around the fire. But what she found was a terrifying silence that weighed over everything like a wet, dark blanket. The bonfires were extinguished or barely smoking. The tents remained closed with heavy fabrics, and in the air floated that unmistakable smell she knew too well. The smell of serious illness taking over a place. "Where are the sick?" she asked, getting off her horse with decisive and professional movements. Eagle Sage pointed toward the largest tent in the camp, located in the exact center of the circle of dwellings. "We put them together to be able to care for them better. There are 14 people inside, 6 elders, 5 children, and 3 young women who fell ill last week while caring for the others." Silent Wind walked toward the tent with a firm and sure step, followed closely by Flor de Luna, who carried a bag full of herbs and medicinal preparations they had brought from the ranch. Jake stayed outside with the horses, observing everything with his blue eyes, missing no detail of the silent camp. Upon entering the tent, Silent Wind's heart shrank painfully. The sick lay on blankets spread on the ground, some moaning softly, others completely immobile and pale as wax. A small child of no more than 4 years coughed with that wet, deep sound indicating fluid accumulated in the lungs. An elderly woman whom Silent Wind recognized as the chief's mother trembled violently despite the 3 blankets covering her. "I need clean water," ordered Silent Wind, taking off her shawl and rolling up her shirt sleeves to her elbows. "Lots of clean water and fire to boil it, and clean cloths, all you can find in the camp." The healthy women waiting outside looked at each other with evident doubts on their faces. Some were the same ones who had whispered insults behind Silent Wind's back for years. Others had voted in favor of their banishment without thinking twice. "Now!" shouted Silent Wind with an authority that surprised even herself. "Every minute you lose arguing is a minute that brings these sick people closer to death. Do you want to save them, or do you want to keep looking at me as if I were a dangerous stranger?" The women ran to obey without further hesitation. For the next few hours, Silent Wind worked without any rest, examining each patient individually with the meticulous care her mother had taught her so many years ago. She checked their reddened eyes, palpated their swollen glands, listened to their difficult breathing, studied the red spots covering their burning skin. Little by little, the symptoms began to form a recognizable pattern in her trained mind. "It's the water," she announced finally, with absolute certainty after questioning several patients about their recent activities. "Where have you been getting your drinking water lately?" Eagle Sage frowned thoughtfully before answering. "From the northern stream. The main stream dried up a month ago due to lack of rain, so we started using the one from the north that comes down from the mountains." "Take me to that stream right now," demanded Silent Wind. They walked for 15 minutes until they reached the mentioned stream. Silent Wind examined the water with a critical and expert eye. Then she walked upstream, following the course of the water among the rocks. After several minutes of careful searching, she found exactly what she suspected: a dead animal in an advanced state of decomposition, partially submerged in the water, contaminating the entire flow coming down to the camp. "Here is the cause of the illness," she said, pointing to the bloated carcass of a deer that had probably died weeks ago. "The water contaminated by this animal is slowly poisoning everyone who drinks it. It is no mysterious evil, nor any angry spirit. It is simply dirty water entering their bodies day after day." Eagle Sage visibly paled upon understanding the implications of her words. "We have been drinking this contaminated water for entire weeks. That is why the elders and children got sick first," explained Silent Wind with professional patience. "Their bodies are weaker and less capable of resisting gradual poisoning. The strong adults are probably also affected, but they have not yet shown severe symptoms." They returned quickly to the camp, and Silent Wind began to give clear and precise instructions to everyone present. She ordered them to immediately stop using the water from the contaminated stream. She sent several young men to fetch water from a clean spring she remembered from her childhood, located an hour's walk to the east. She prepared a medicinal tea with the herbs she had brought from the ranch. Herbs her mother had taught her helped clean the body of harmful substances and strengthen natural defenses. Flor de Luna worked tirelessly by her side throughout the night, without complaining once, preparing more medicinal tea, changing wet cloths on feverish foreheads, feeding spoonfuls of warm broth to the sick who could swallow. Jake helped by carrying fresh water, bringing firewood to keep the fires lit, and holding in his strong arms the elders who needed to sit up to drink their medicine. At dawn on the third day of intensive treatment, the small child who had been coughing so severely opened his eyes and asked for food with a weak but clear voice. His mother, who had not slept for days, cried with joy, hugging Silent Wind, not caring that she had once treated her with contempt. One by one, the sick began to improve gradually. The fevers lowered slowly but steadily. The red spots began to fade from the mistreated skin. The persistent cough became less frequent and less deep with each passing day. After a full week of constant care, all patients were out of mortal danger and on the path to total recovery. Eagle Sage fulfilled his promise solemnly. He gathered the whole tribe in the center of the camp and spoke with a loud and clear voice that everyone could hear perfectly. "We committed a terrible and unforgivable mistake," he declared before his gathered people. "We banished 2 innocent women due to cruel traditions and cold hearts. We called them a burden without value, when in reality it was we who did not know how to value them. And when our tribe needed them most, they returned to save us without asking for vengeance or holding grudges. They are better people than we were to them." He knelt before Silent Wind and Flor de Luna, his old knees touching the dusty earth of the camp. "I ask for forgiveness publicly from you and from your spirits, and I humbly ask you to return to live with us with all the honors you deserve and that we unjustly denied you." Silent Wind looked at Flor de Luna, and both smiled softly with mutual understanding in their shining eyes. Then she looked at Jake, who was watching everything from a respectful distance with a small, proud smile on his lips. "Thank you for your words and for recognizing the injustice," responded Silent Wind with a serene and firm voice. "We sincerely accept them, but our home is no longer here with you. Our home is now on a ranch in the desert with a good man who accepted us when you rejected us without pity." Eagle Sage nodded with understandable sadness, but also with genuine respect in his old eyes. "I understand perfectly, but you will always be welcome here as honored guests, and our tribe will never forget what you did for us in our darkest moment." That afternoon, the 3 departed back to the ranch that was now their true home. Silent Wind rode in silence next to Jake, while Flor de Luna softly hummed an ancient song her grandmother had taught her when she was just a little girl. "Are you okay?" asked Jake, looking at her with genuine concern in his blue eyes. Silent Wind smiled broadly, perhaps the most sincere and free smile she had shown in many years of silent suffering. "I am better than okay. For years I thought that being alone, without a husband, made me incomplete as a woman, that my life had no true purpose or value. But this week I saved 5 children from certain death. I saw them open their eyes. I saw them smile at their mothers. I saw them ask for food with their weak little voices. I did not bring them into the world from my womb, but I gave them back their lives when they were losing them." Flor de Luna rode up beside her with tears shining in her dark eyes. "Your mother would be so proud of you, dear sister. Everything she taught you with so much love and patience was worth it. Her knowledge continues to save lives through your healing hands." Jake rode in silence beside them, and the 3 exchanged a look of gratitude and belonging that needed no words. Family does not always come from blood or marriage. Sometimes it comes from 3 strangers who meet in the desert and decide to care for each other until the end of their days. The sun was setting slowly behind the distant mountains, painting the sky in orange, pink, and gold colors that seemed to celebrate this moment of earned peace. And as the 3 rode together toward their modest but love-filled home. They knew with absolute certainty that they had found something more valuable than any material treasure in this world. They had found a family built not with obligatory blood ties, but with daily decisions of love, respect, and unconditional dedication. And that was more than enough. It was all that really mattered in this life.